Picture a sprawling, multi-million-dollar manufacturing line humming at full capacity, and then instantly grinding to a dead halt. The culprit is rarely a massive power failure or a catastrophic machine breakdown. Usually, the entire system is paralyzed because a single, seemingly insignificant component failed to arrive on time or failed to meet specifications. Often, that failure begins months earlier, in an office miles away, when a well-meaning purchasing team falls into a classic procurement trap. They look at a raw material requirement and ask a very dangerous question: who can supply this for the absolute lowest price? Sourcing from unqualified vendors based entirely on apparent savings introduces hidden flaws into a stable ecosystem. A supplier with weak quality controls will eventually deliver inconsistent raw materials, and an operation that lacks proper documentation capabilities will instantly delay critical customer approvals. Choosing the wrong supplier creates a ripple effect far beyond the procurement department. A single, unchecked decision regarding a low-cost part triggers a cascade of failure that paralyzes the entire production floor. The first wave of consequences hits quietly. Inconsistent raw materials force technicians into hours of unexpected factory rework. Simultaneously, missing certifications and compliance gaps hold up finished goods in the warehouse, delaying revenue and frustrating clients. When quality control is weak at the source, the fallout escalates quickly. Minor inconsistencies bleed into the finished product, leading to severe customer complaints and, eventually, public product recalls. This bar chart visualizes the true total cost of a poorly sourced component. The tiny sliver of initial savings on the purchase price is rapidly overshadowed by the costs of production downtime, factory rework, and emergency procurement. This reveals the central tension of modern manufacturing. How do facilities actively block these external, financially ruinous risks from ever entering their factory doors in the first place? Securing the supply chain starts with a change in how manufacturers evaluate a bid. They have to cross out the old question and replace it with a new standard. Instead of asking who can supply a material, they ask which qualified supplier can supply this consistently. The structural mechanism behind this shift is the Approved Supplier List, or ASL. Used properly, an ASL is a rigorous, controlled qualification barrier. It acts as an active filter for risk, ensuring that vendors are fully evaluated and authorized before they ever receive a purchase order. To even be considered for this list, a supplier must survive an initial gauntlet. Depending on the material, this process filters out poor candidates using extensive questionnaires, sample testing, and on-site factory audits. For critical raw materials or production components, the gauntlet becomes tighter. Suppliers are forced through secondary layers of scrutiny, requiring technical evaluations, validation processes, and rigorous regulatory compliance checks. By enforcing these standards, an ASL successfully quarantines risk outside the factory walls. It ensures that only predictable, tested components reach the assembly line. Because the stakes are so high, building this list requires a cross-functional defense system. Supplier selection demands input far beyond the walls of the procurement department. Procurement teams naturally prioritize pricing, lead times, and payment terms. Conversely, quality and technical teams demand rigorous traceability, strict manufacturing controls, and proof that the material actually performs in a real-world production environment. An effective ASL forces these departments into alignment. It establishes a metric known as total business value, ensuring that supplier evaluations balance commercial conditions with technical capability. Even established suppliers face external threats. A primary vendor can suddenly be hit by raw material shortages, logistics problems, or unexpected capacity limitations that halt their shipments. To survive these shocks, a mature ASL builds redundancy into the supply chain. Manufacturers proactively evaluate and approve alternative suppliers for important materials, ensuring a vetted secondary source is already on standby to take over without hesitation. A robust ASL provides a manufacturer with secure, ready-to-use sourcing options established long before an urgent crisis actually strikes. Supplier approval is not a permanent achievement. Factories expand, management changes, and quality can deteriorate over time. This dynamic radar chart maps how a supplier's performance fluctuates across multiple axes over time. Manufacturers grade vendors using data, tracking metrics like on-time delivery and specification compliance. This grading enforces direct consequences. High performers become partners, while failing suppliers are removed entirely. This grading process highlights the vendors who provide consistent quality and reliable delivery. When issues occur, these reliable suppliers communicate quickly and demonstrate the technical capability to support the manufacturer long-term. Managing the ASL as a living system enforces accountability. It ensures a company's operational resilience is driven by verified performance, rather than a reliance on short-term convenience. The approved supplier list serves as a tactical shield for the production line. Every name on that list represents a deliberate decision about who is trusted with the company's survival in a competitive market. A slightly more expensive vendor that consistently meets specifications creates greater value than a cheaper vendor that causes operational problems. The absolute lowest quotation on a bid sheet rarely equals the lowest total cost to the business. Mitigating quality risk at the source, before a single component ever enters the building, is the only way to keep the production line moving.